Hey everyone, today we have a MTD chipper with a 5 horsepower Briggs on it. Very similar to that Briggs. But I just took that one off of a rototiller, and that one's exploded. But I kept it for this one because a person said that his friend, couldn't remember because he had a couple of them, but one of them either just needs a tune-up and the other one needs to be rebuilt. Whatever that means. So it all looks pretty good, but maybe it needs a new coil. I'll have one. Maybe the tank is bad. I'll have one. Stuff like that. Because that one's fine for that. It just seized. What happens when you don't run oil? But the very first thing to do is I don't know anything about it. So let's check the oil and gas and all that good stuff. There's gas in there. Not a whole lot. Okay, good. Some of these don't have a very long dipstick, so you can tell it's a little spidery. It's low on oil, but it does have oil. It's black. I didn't get a giant whiff of bad fuel, so I'm going to put you up there and we will give it a pull and see if anything happens. I'm going to take the air filter off just in case we do need to put something down the throat. It's already available. Air filter came off pretty clean. It's on choke now. It's on full throttle now. Yeah, so let's give it a yank. Oh my god. Did you see that? Yeah. Well, good thing I have a vacuum. I'm gonna put a mask on. There's one good thing about COVID. It allows me to have a pretty decent supply of N95 masks. I might sound muffled though. I don't really want to inhale rust. Look at that go. It just gets worse and worse. Well, I'm already gonna have to do a massive amount of cleaning. I don't hear anything clanking either, so let's see if this works. This is 2-cycle fuel. I had to prime it first, it wasn't completely full, so that's why I had to do so many pumps. It's off choke. Oh my god. I didn't turn on a fan. Okay, well, I'm going to de-rustify my garage and be back. That was an insane amount of dust. I literally spent a good hour trying to clean it and I'm still not even done. I still have my counter. But we're not bitter. Here's the thing. When you do these screws, make sure to leave the choke door closed because it will keep it from falling in there. That's not so important when taking this off, but definitely is important when putting this back on because you don't really want to have to try to fish it out. And of course, by you fishing it out, you probably knocked it around a little bit and then it's just a giant pain from there. Cover your ears and eyes. Let's see. Will this work? No, it will not. But yeah, that was an insane amount of dust. We're going to take off this carb. First things first, we're going to want to take off this little panel. Usually these come off pretty rough. I mean, you saw how much dirt, not dust, was on there. Sometimes this is a little bit further in and there's a little access hole. We don't have that problem here. But on the new ones, there is looks like 4. On the older ones, there's sometimes only 3. Well, I guess 5 technically if you want to count the one that's holding on the little throttle plate. But these are the easy ones, because you can see them pretty closely and pretty noticeably. The one that you will not have in the older one is the next one, so keep an eye out. And that's in the middle. Goes straight through the throat, or straight through the center of, I guess it's not really the center of the carb. But the old ones won't have this. They'll just have the ones on the bottom. So that is going to detach it from the tank. More likely than not though, the tank isn't going to come off or even want to come off, and we don't want it to because there's a bracket on the bottom. Looks like we're going to have to persuade this to come off a bit. It's not too uncommon. There we go. Been persuaded. Okay. There we are. Now you can put that off right there real quick. Remember how this is set up. That's all I can really say. This is part of the governor. So we're going to want to make sure that we don't pull on it or get it too tight or anything. And for whatever reason, this screw in particular loves to disappear. So keep an eye out on that one. It's kind of sketchy. Okay. Now that that's off, I'm just going to leave that alone. That is detached. Don't have to worry about anything else right there. Pull that out. That one isn't too common. And we should be ready now to yeah, we should be ready now. You can also take off this, but it's a real pain to have to put it back on. So I'm just not going to take it off. Next, you need a 3/8. We're going to take off this one, and there's also one on the bottom over here. This one, if you have an old one, be prepared to get a beer a drink, whatever your copium way of dealing with aggravation is, because you will have it. It is too small for the actual close end of the wrench, so you end up having to use the open end, and you can't ever do like a full rotation because of, well, unless you can break the laws of physics and go through the carburetor, you're going to be doing about a quarter of a turn, and I want to say it's that many turns. Look at that. I mean, the carb is probably like right there, so what is that? That's like at least 10 full rotations. So like I said, be prepared to really curse the name of the people who made this. I mean, you will legitimately not like them. So I'm going to take that off. That's just pretty easy, and I'll bring you back. Now that's off, we're going to persuade this to come off too. I just remove both of the bolts holding it on. I do want to be pretty gentle with this. I usually will have problems. Did I forget a bolt? No. Okay, good. Oops. Got attached from the intake, and here we go. More likely than not, you're gonna have to replace the gasket, so I wouldn't really try to save it, to be honest. Just consider it a lost cause. Oh, we have a little bracket there. It's holding us up. There we go. So a couple things I see already. One is there's already fluid in there. That tells me that when we were running it, so in here we'll replace it, but when I refer to a fuel pump, this is what I'm talking about. There's a diaphragm in here. The pulsing of the engine will use the diaphragm to move fuel. So basically what it does is it takes fuel from this tube, which is going pretty much to the bottom, maybe like a half-inch or so from the bottom, sucks it up, puts it in there through these various passageways, and then it will put it into the container. You see how the container isn't level? It will spill over, and it will spill over back into the tank. So it's just continuously flowing. If your pump was bad, there wouldn't be anything in there. Granted, it could have pumped that in there a long time ago, and it could have gone bad afterwards. But what we can see, though, is this is pretty tore up. So we're definitely in need for a cleaning. You can't really avoid this. Sometimes if this exhaust wasn't here, you could take off the exhaust. You could get away with just taking off the pump while it's still on the engine, blow it out with some compressed air, be prepared if there is fuel in the tank to get a little wet, and then put a new one on and it'll probably run just fine. We are not that lucky. We're gonna have to clean it. So we're gonna get started. These carbs are pretty much the easiest thing in the world to work on. But I do like the fact there's not this little swirl thing in there as well right now. Sometimes you get some that will have it. I take that out. Most of the time though, those are the old ones. But this is that fuel diaphragm I was talking about. And when you order a carb rebuild kit, it's going to come with a whole lot of pieces, unless you get the specific ones. If you get a generic one, it's going to come with a whole lot of gaskets and diaphragm. Oh, excuse me, just gaskets. Expect to not need pretty much all except for one of them, and just keep the rest for maybe a different piece of equipment, or maybe a scrapbook, who knows. But let's take this off. There's usually lips somewhere. Where's the lip? Of course, it's probably on the other side, which it is. Don't want to ruin anything, obviously. Might be able to get in here. And here we go. You can't smell that, but it smells horrible. So these are little doors and passageways. The flaps kind of open and close to let the fuel go through and move and whatnot. It's supposed to be very pliable, and while it's not hard, it's just not good. And the spring kind of lost its springiness. The next thing, I did kind of brush it off as well. These should be non-adjustable, but just in case, let's push it all the way in. Or roughly a turnout. I'm pretty sure that's not. I could be wrong. It's super long though. Oh, it is adjustable. That's good we checked. But look at the crap on the end of that needle. So I'm going to put this in the ultrasonic cleaner. It's going to help take off or help me remove this gasket material. I'm going to try to find a new gasket, and then I will bring you back once it's all done and clean and dry. Everything is out, nice and dry. I made sure to blow through there, and I also took a small little wire bristle. Let me show you. Let me grab it. I like using these. They're cheap. Get them at Harbor Freight. And then blow through it with an air compressor. No air compressor, then just get compressed air in a can. In addition, also through there. So what we're going to do, this is the kit. I kind of put it in here to keep it from harm's way, but it comes with the spring as well as the gasket and the diaphragm. This is the diaphragm, which looks a lot better than the old one, that's for sure. This can be a little temperamental to put on sometimes, especially with that spring in our way, but with a little finesse, we can get it. There we go. Perfect. That's why it was so hard to put on. It literally snapped into place. Or take off. Start all these by hand. Leaking on this carburetor is something that I want to go over while I do this. You get leaks coming from here, and when it's on the tank, you can get leaks coming from the base. If it's coming through here, really there's not a whole lot you can do. You could try to get a new cover, maybe off an old one. I've never actually been able to, or never actually have, I should rephrase, never really looked, but maybe you could buy a new cover. At that point, it's cheaper just to buy a new carb, and even if it's the wrong size, you can just take the cover off. But that's generally what I end up doing. These don't leak too much as long as you don't like super crank them down. Like with pretty much anything with this type of work, you don't need to put super amount of strength in there. Just enough to keep it secure and no leaks. So now we put this in. I cleaned it off, or at least the tip, and a lot of the rest of it, but the spring was a little crusty, and yeah. But that is how you fix a side. If you have it leaking from the base, check your fuel cap. If there's pressure being built in there, it's gonna keep on flowing and flowing and flowing and flowing, and then eventually it will start to leak. So I took that one out about 1, which is roughly where it was before. I'm going to put this back on the opposite how we took it off, and then we will give this a pull. Something important to note, I'm in the process of cleaning this out. There was a pretty decent amount of rust in there. It's pretty okay now, but I'm just going to work with that. I'm going to use a variety of carb cleaner and Q-tips and scraping it off. Something else to bring up. Now when you do this, make sure either the one you have, or in my case 2, these throttle linkages are on this side. They have a real liking to fall behind. If you put this on there, you're not going to be able to just swing it by. You're going to have to bend it, and that's just not a good idea. Make sure all that's there, and then you can sink it down. I'm going to put the carb on first, and then put it on the engine. Then that should be the end of it, and then put gas in there, of course. So for whatever reason, people don't usually show this, but I kind of want to go over the internals. This is a choke. There's a linkage. Just connects there. It's not too hard. Sometimes there's a throttle cable that's involved. If it is, it's probably connected right there. This one doesn't have it. This one has one of these. So not too hard. It looks like I also need to put this pin, good thing I just looked at it, into this little slot. That's just going to put tension on it, so I need to take it off. In fact, let's just do that now. For whatever reason, they try to make this as complicated as possible, but the gasket's on. I didn't tighten it for this exact reason because I knew I was probably going to be forgetting something. But the linkage, the thick linkage, just connects down here, which this is connected to, and then this just connects to the normal linkage for the governor. So this is idle, that's full throttle. When you first start it, everything is on full throttle, so that's normal. And then once the governor starts spinning up, it starts pushing the throttle down, and then it starts to lower it. So if you are getting full throttle, that's okay. I'm gonna have to lift this up more. But yeah, every single time you will forget something, don't worry. I mean, I did, and I thought I was done. That's why it's good to kind of do like a double check. Okay, we are on. Now let's put this back down. And after you're done tightening everything down, you want to make sure that it all moves freely. Because if it doesn't, you obviously have something wrong. You're probably just seeing hands right now, but unfortunately, I kind of need to use them. Okay, so that works. As you can tell, that little barb needs to connect to this little linkage just here, which then connects to the little piece I was showing you earlier that we didn't want to take off. I added this, put it back on, should be good. And if it's on full throttle right now, you could tell there's a lot more tension. Look how fast it goes. This is off. Hear the difference? So you should be good. I'm gonna put a new plug in there. I'm gonna let it run a little bit. I'm gonna let it run outside, or at least by the garage door with the chute open to the outside, so I don't get, you know, dust cloud number 2. New plug. Fuel is in there. Yeah, if it starts spewing out, I'm gonna lift up this little area and just let it go. But with this style, remember that pump, well, there's nothing in there, so we have to let it fill up. So it's gonna take a few pulls no matter what you do. So you can either put a little primer down it, which I have not done, or give it a pull. I just want to give it a pull. It's probably gonna take a couple of them, but we're on choke, we're on. Let's see what happens. The good thing is the weight of the chipper blades kind of help pull the engine through, so it will go through more cycles than it usually would. Something that was happening was it was not really wanting to idle very low. I looked at the idle screw, it was pushed all the way in. So I took it out about half. Let's see if it'll idle now. Yeah, so I need to do a little bit more tweak on it. The idle screw is definitely a little different, but other than that, it runs. I'm gonna let it run a little bit more. As you can tell, we're not sitting in the middle of a toxic rust cloud, which in my opinion is probably considered a bonus. And I don't really hear anything obscenely loud in the clanky of the teeth inside, so that's good. Something to remember is if you use this for a long time and then you turn it off, especially if it's on full throttle and you just quickly turn it off, the engine's still running pretty fast. It still might pull fuel for quite some time, and if you ever have a hard time restarting it after you turn it off, maybe a couple minutes after, more likely than not you're flooded, because it did go through so many revolutions and it still pulled fuel every time. Because the only thing that's stopping the engine from running is with the kill is the fact that there's no spark. That's it. There's fuel going through there, the valves are going, the cam is turning, the flywheel's turning, everything is running the same as it was before, except it just doesn't have spark. So, you know, you could foul the plug with fuel, so beware. Other than that, I think we're pretty much set. I'm gonna give it a quick bath, change the oil, and we're good to go. Okay, if you like what you see, keep watching, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video. If you have any questions, leave a comment below, and have a good evening. Later.